Who are you? What are you made of? And where are you going? What will you make of yourself? Sometimes, the hardest questions are the ones you ask yourself. If you're lucky, the answers are easy to find. If you're smart, you'll start looking here at one of our 23 community colleges and more than 40 locations. To learn more, visit findyouranswer.com. Find your answer at Virginia's Community Colleges.
And good evening. This is Frank Mottek. We're doing it live right here, weeknights in the 5 o'clock hour in Los Angeles. Mottek on Money 5 nights a week for you, live on the air on 790 KBC, streaming live for you online worldwide at kbc.com. And yes, the on-demand Mottek on Money podcast at kbc.com, Apple, iTunes, all your favorite podcast platforms, and on the socials too. Well, let's call it a well-fed rally today to close out the week on Wall Street. Fed Chairman Jerome Powell taking the spotlight and warning that the Fed might have to raise interest rates even more to deal with, well, still high inflation. The Fed Chairman's message to investors today during the Jackson Hole speech that he gave before other central bankers is that still too high inflation might warrant more interest rate hikes as he keeps a careful eye on incoming economic reports. We've seen bond yields move mostly higher. The yield in the 10-year note, which impacts the fixed-rate mortgage rates, which have hit 20-year highs recently, stands at 4.24%. Big news here at Rite Aid, according to the Wall Street Journal, is preparing to file for bankruptcy in coming weeks to address lawsuits the drugstore chain is facing over its alleged role in the sale of opioids. Wall Street Journal reporting this, citing people familiar with what's happening. Shares of the pharmacy retail chain operator closed down 51% today at 71 cents. The Chapter 11 filing would cover Rite Aid's more than $3.3 billion debt load and pending legal allegations that it oversupplied prescription painkillers, according to the Wall Street Journal. Of course, Rite Aid, along with other retailers, have been hit by retail theft in a big way. We did see that big Macy's smash and grab in the San Fernando Valley just yesterday, the latest in a series of smash and grab incidents at major department stores here in the area. Shares of Rite Aid down 51% following that Wall Street Journal report. Former President Trump and mega entrepreneur, former President Trump, historic mugshot already popping up on T-shirts, coffee mugs, posters, bumper stickers, beverage coolers, shot glasses, and bobbleheads as consumers on both sides of the political aisle attempt to use the image for their own purposes or to cash in on a golden opportunity. I'll discuss this week's market action shortly with veteran money manager Ken Winans, president of Winans Investments, Forbes magazine contributor and market historian. The hot labor summer continues with Hollywood shut down because of the ongoing writers and actors union strikes, the hotel workers strike in the L.A. area, now maybe a big strike by the auto workers, now that the United Auto Workers Union announced its membership at the Detroit Big Three car makers have given the union leadership an authorization for a strike if the leadership there deems it necessary. I'll talk about that with our car expert Lauren Fix later this hour. But first, on your money, the markets, the economy, politics too. Joining us live now, the one and only Ben Stein for our occasional Frankenstein conversation here. Financial and political commentator extraordinaire, author of numerous great books, attorney and economist, as well as actor too, having played the economics professor in the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off and one of the most famous scenes in American cinema, which he improvised. Ben Stein, thank you very much for taking the call here to wrap up a big week with the Fed chairman in focus and certainly former President Trump also in focus with what he's dealing with. Give us your assessment of things here at the moment.
Well, the inflation struggle is an astonishingly interesting part of the study of economics. We really have figured out, I think, the solution to a number of the world's worst economic problems and history's worst economic problems. And we have figured out the solution to very, very high unemployment. We figured out the solution to extremely difficult household debt situations. We figured out the solution to really catastrophic unemployment numbers throughout the developed world and even the undeveloped world. But inflation remains a current, ongoing, seemingly insoluble problem. We just do not seem to have a solution to this very basic problem, and we are at the problem's mercy. And this is really, really serious because when you have a developed country, a highly developed country like the United States of America, and other highly developed countries like the ones in Western Europe and East Asia, you really have to wonder if we can't find a solution to it, what's going to happen? What keeps it from feeding upon itself endlessly until there is a kind of retailing dog chasing its tail situation where there's just no end to it except crisis and fear. I mean, I don't want to go on too long with this, but President Roosevelt said we have nothing to fear but fear itself. But fear itself is plenty to fear. I mean, it's not as if we said we have nothing to fear but running out of chocolate ice cream. We have plenty to fear. I mean, there's a hell of a lot to fear in the way of what's inflation's fear that generates about itself. It's a scary situation. But here's the amazing part, Frank. If I may call you Frank, since we've been friends for generations, yes. We're still thriving, and the country is booming. Unemployment numbers are breathtakingly low, and anywhere you look, the basic shortages of luxury cars, luxury homes, luxury clothing. There's no shortage of the indicia of extraordinary prosperity.
On the air live with the one and only Ben Stein for our Frank and Stein conversation here live on 790 KBC. And I know you go by the gas station of the Stars every so often there in Beverly Hills. You probably noticed the prices going up.
Every day, Frank, every day.
Right. Oil up around $80 a barrel here, and regular gas, $5.35 is the average price. It's a lot higher at that particular station. The premium now at $5.69, like at $5.70 a gallon on average here. Obviously, that's a stubborn part of inflation on full display. Where do you see fuel prices go from here, Ben Stein, given your vast experience and given what's happening around the world? Where does that go from here?
Well, my dear friend Frank, you are asking the exactly right person to ask in the sense that I'm an old man. I'm 78 years old. So I was in on the first one of these, and it happened as the Yom Kippur War was coming to an end. And we tried every darn trick in the book, and none of them worked. And my father, whom some of your listeners will remember, Herbert Stein, was chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors under President Nixon at the time. And he was in charge of what was called Phase 1, which was mandatory wage price controls. And even with that, it worked for a while. It worked incredibly well for a while. In fact, if you happen to have the resources to do it and look at the what should we call them, press conferences that my father was having at that time, he is saying this is the best economic news we've had in a whole lifetime of economic news coming from the United States of America. But then a year or two later, he was saying it didn't work. It didn't work. Yes, we were able to control prices for a while, but after a while, it stopped working, and we wound up just with ourselves in a deeper and deeper hole. There was no solution in hand. And is it going to be that there's going to have to be mandatory wage price controls? Is that going to really be what happens? It's very hard to believe that could be the only solution, but maybe it is.
Elated that you're able to share that tremendous insight and experience from those days and fast forward to what's happening now. It was mentioned during the first Republican presidential primary debate that China is using Russia as a gas station now, while we've obviously impacted our own domestic production here and heavily rely now on foreign production once again. What were some of the big takeaways for you on that big debate this week? And, of course, I want to get your reaction of what happened to President Trump this week with his appearance there at the Georgia jailhouse yesterday.
Well, the thing at the Georgia jailhouse is a disgrace to the Constitution of the United States. It should never happen. The things that he was indicted for are trivialities. There's nothing major about them. It should never have happened. It was just a way for the Democrat Party to get back at the Republicans for some grievance, slight or real. And it was a way of saying to the Republicans, look, we're going to just indict Mr. Trump in every jurisdiction, no matter how small or how large, everywhere in the country, until we've indicted him so many places that he basically cannot travel outside of his home without being sandbagged in every direction by Democrats and leftists who will not take no for an answer. Look, there are no crimes here. This whole thing with Mr. Trump is like the Russia collusion myth, the many different myths that the Democrats generated about Mr. Trump, and there was nothing real about any of them. It's like what my grandmother Gertrude Stein said about Oakland, California. When you get there, there's no there there. And when you get to the bottom, if there is a bottom, of all these allegations against Mr. Trump, there's no there there. There never was any collusion or conspiracy with Russia or with China to inflict harm on the U.S. and to damage the economy. It was just all one fraud after another. There's been just a barrage of frauds against President Trump by the media. None of them sticks to the wall. There's nothing real about any of them. All we see is media conspiring with each other against Mr. Trump. You have, as a very smart friend of mine calls it, the fourth branch of the Third Reich endlessly working against the president and against the voters and against the will of the people to try to harass the president and demolish the Constitution. And we, unfortunately and tragically, it seems to be working. I mean, it seems to be working quite well that the Constitution is being demolished by the people who make the TV shows, make the internet shows. It seems to be that there's no more truth out there in the man on the street idea of what's going on in America, our beautiful America, our spectacularly wonderful America. I'd say the most beautiful thing that's ever been in the history of mankind. The United States of America is being wrecked by the attacks upon it by the left-wingers in the Democrat Congress and the Democrat, what shall I say, judicial branch, so-called law enforcement branch, which really has become an anti-law enforcement branch that does not work to enforce the law, but to create fake laws and a fake judicial system that really deprives people of their legal rights.
On the air live with Ben Stein for a Frank and Stein conversation. Must be tough for you to say that, given your love for this country, and that was a tough assessment, but thank you for that. And are we going to see you wearing one of those $34 T-shirts with the phrase "Never Surrender" and President Trump's mugshot from the Fulton County jail on it?
I don't think it's...
Introducing Rich Valdez, America at Night, the podcast.
Welcome to the conversation, familia.
A perfect blend of news and entertainment, interviews and insights.
It's really just an expose on how messed up things are.
America's nighttime town hall whenever you want.
It's a huge problem that deserves a lot more attention.
Rich Valdez, America at Night. Follow the podcast wherever you listen.
So, we've got a #1 deluxe meal. Is there anything else I can get you?
Yeah, I'd also like a good night's sleep. Maybe something like the I didn't struggle all night with my uncomfortable CPAP mask.
Sir, I think what you're looking for is Inspire. It's an implant that works inside your body to treat sleep apnea without a CPAP.
Come on! He sounds hangry. Inspire. Sleep apnea innovation. Inspire is not for everyone. Talk to your doctor to see if it's right for you. And review important safety information at inspiresleep.com.
You're going to see me wearing those, but, sir, I will wear anything that it takes. I will stomach stark raving naked on Santa Monica Boulevard or Sunset Boulevard, both of which are very near where I live. Anything to protect the Constitution of the United States, the greatest document that has ever been created by the mind and hand of man, as Gladstone, the great English statesman, said. That was the Constitution of the United States. The subversives in this country that do not like the Constitution are at work endlessly to demolish Americans' trust in their own Constitution. And I hate to say it, but their program is working. It's working in a horrible way.
Let me ask you this. At some point, and it may have already started, it's been mentioned certainly by some of the market analysts here that the political and legal drama that's playing out could ultimately impact the economy and the financial markets. At what point might that happen, Ben Stein? And do you think President Trump will go to trial on any of these things here before the election?
I don't think he's going to go to trial on them. And I think that if there's any justice left in this country, that case, especially the most recent one in Georgia, is going to be thrown out. The woman who brought that case should really be, in my opinion, very seriously tried for subversion of the Constitution. But will she be? I don't know. The whole thing has also gotten mixed up with all kinds of completely fake racial smears about how the Republicans are the party of racism, which is really nonsense, since there would probably still be slavery in the United States if it weren't for the Republicans demolishing slavery before and during the Civil War. We are seeing an evil witch's brew of subversion of the rights of all Americans in order to make a new America, which does not rely upon the Constitution. It relies upon the hatred and jealousy and anger of certain groups towards the United States itself.
On the air with Ben Stein, and certainly the cases involving President Trump getting new attention this week. But what about the case against the president's son, Hunter Biden, and where that stands? Will there be a bombshell here now that the settlement has been thrown out by a judge?
Well, first of all, that was a good thing that throwing out happened. But I don't know if there's going to be another bombshell. I know that that case should never have been brought. If any two-bit prosecutor or district attorney anywhere can bring a case against a former president, ruin his or her name, bring him to the verge of psychological ruin, there can be no more justice in America. There's just from now on a perpetual reign of terror imposed upon honest public citizens and public servants trying to do their best for their America. God help us if we don't have a president as strong as Mr. Trump, who was strong enough to take these blows, these incredible hammer blows from the Democrats and the left over and over and over again, to take them standing proud and tall, and to not give up and not walk away, but to fight back. He's going to, I think, if America survives this attack on the Constitution, he will go down in history as one of America's truly great presidents.
On the air with Ben Stein, and certainly hope to see you back in the classroom one of these days, Ben Stein, and plenty to lecture about these days, right?
I would love to lecture about it. I have a home in Malibu, not more than 10 minutes from that classroom in Malibu that is a fictitious classroom. I would love to go back there and talk about what is the truth? What is the truth? What's the truth going to last like? What is it going to look like if any of us is alive in 10 or 20 years? What's it going to look like? When we look back on these days, and we're going to say these are great days for America, or are these days a disgrace to the Constitution? I have a terrible feeling that we're going to say these days were a disgrace to the Constitution.
We're getting some calls now. People want to make sure that it's you, Ben Stein. Can you take the roll for us, please?
Adams, Adamley, Adamowski, Burroughs, Bueller.
It's you.
Bueller.
There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. Ben Stein, thank you very much for joining us live here tonight. We wish you a wonderful evening and a wonderful weekend, and look forward to speaking with you again very, very soon.
God bless you. The sooner the better, Frank. God
yes,
bless
sir.
you.
Thank you very much. Hope to see you soon. Ben Stein, the one and only Ben Stein, for our occasional Frankenstein conversation live here tonight on Mottek on Money on 790 KABC. Looking for legal help you can trust? Look no further than attorney Clark Fielding and the Fielding Law Team, your go-to destination for top-notch personal injury legal representation. Fielding Law understands that life can take unexpected turns, and you need a strong legal team to stand by your side. If you've been injured in an accident that was not your fault and need help with a personal injury claim to obtain justice, Fielding Law is here to fight for you. Accidents happen, but you don't have to face the aftermath alone. Fielding's law experienced attorneys are here to guide you through the legal process and ensure you get the compensation you deserve. Medical bills piling up, lost wages due to injury? Don't worry. Fielding Law specializes in personal injury cases and works tirelessly to recover your losses so you can focus on healing. The Fielding Law Team has a proven record of success. They've helped countless clients secure fair settlements and win in court. You can trust Fielding Law to provide you with the best legal representation possible. If Fielding Law takes your case, Clark and his team of sharks will personally work with you, fighting hard for you to receive the compensation the law allows. Call Fielding Law for a free case evaluation. It costs you nothing to get that honest opinion. And do what I did. Put Clark Fielding's number in your phone under the word accident. Hit it when you need it. 833-88-SHARK, 833-88-SHARK, or go to clarkthesharklaw.com. Mottek on Money continues here on 790 KABC. Good evening. Winning day for the stock market. The Dow up 247 points, 34,347. The S&P 500 gained 29 at 4406, and the Nasdaq up 127 at 13,591. The yield in the 10-year note picking up today to 4.23%. That's the one that impacts the fixed-rate mortgage rates, which are still hovering near 20-year highs. Market reacting to comments today from Fed Chairman Jerome Powell. Actually, not just comments, but a formal speech today to a big annual conference of central bankers, the Jackson Hole Conference. He said inflation was still too high and might warrant more interest rate hikes as the Fed continues to keep a careful watch on incoming economic reports. Looks like now traders are largely expecting the Fed policymakers will hold rates steady in September, but do see a chance of another interest rate hike in November or December. Will the Fed play a Grinch? Well, according to the predictors of this, at last check, that's the expectation. Fed funds futures were indicating a nearly 50% probability of a quarter-point hike to 5.5 to 5.75% of the Fed's November meeting, and a slightly lower chance of such a hike to do that same range in December. Rite Aid stock plunging 51% today after the Wall Street Journal reported the drugstore chain was filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection, as it has more than $3.3 billion in debt and faced multiple lawsuits alleging its pharmacies overprescribed opioid painkillers, citing people known to be familiar with the plans. Talking to the Wall Street Journal, following the report, Rite Aid shares got as low as 66 cents a share and finished down 51% at 71 cents a share. Their previous worst performance was a 39% drop back in 1999. Rite Aid stocks down about 79% so far this year. Taking a look at the price of oil, it's hovering near $80, up 78 cents at $79.83 a barrel. At Southern California gas pumps, the damage has been done. Regular averaging $5.35 a gallon. Premium now $5.70 a gallon on average. And diesel all the way up there at $5.84 a gallon on average, according to today's AAA Fuel Gauge survey. Mottek on Money continues here in 790 KABC. Good evening. Yep, you heard me. Rite Aid stock down 51% today after the Wall Street Journal reported the drugstore chain was filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. Meanwhile, Reuters reports Hostess Brands, ticker symbol on that one, TWNK, known for its Twinkies and Snowball snack cakes, was contemplating a sale to more than a few interested parties, including some big players like General Mills, Mondelez, PepsiCo, and Hershey. And looks like Hostess Brands shares up 22% today, one of the big winners on the day. Let's talk about this week's market action, including the Fed's big speech today and a well-fed rally today. Let's bring in money manager Ken WINANS now, president of WINANS Investments, Forbes magazine contributor, market historian, and author of Investment Atlas 1 and 2. Ken WINANS, thank you very much for taking the call. Another eventful week here. Give us your assessment of what we just saw here.
Frank, I think we can call it best a reality check. And I know there have been a lot of, especially in the investment community, a lot of wishful thinking that the inflation thing or the inflation problem has been slain. and that the Fed's going to stop raising interest rates and probably drop interest rates. Well, that reality has come to an end when you realize that inflation is still very stubbornly engrossed in our economy, and it's going to take a while. It takes years to get this under control. It really, really does. The analogy I often use, anybody who has to deal with a rust problem on a car or a boat trailer or anything else, you know how hard it is to get rust under control. Well, that's the inflation effect on the economy. And so with that being said, Wall Street had a chance to realize that, hey, stocks had gotten a little bit ahead of themselves, especially in the tech sector. And then you throw on top of it, it's actually for the dinner party guests who want to make a bet and win, what month is actually worse than infamous October? It's actually August. August since 1970 for the S&P 500, the Dow Industrial Average, and the NASDAQ is a worse performing month than the month of October. So again, this is not a surprise that we're going through a bit of the sell-off going into September is by far the worst month for the year. So it's a good time to put your list together and begin to make those balances in your portfolio. And certainly that's what I'm doing right now myself. It's a good time to do it.
On the Air Live with money manager Ken Winans. Of course, October gets a bad rap because of the stock market crash of October 29 and then that Black Friday or Black Monday back in 1987, which we went through. Now, just about a month or two ago, it seemed the market was comfortable with a soft landing scenario, but certainly now with the Fed chairman specifically saying inflation is still running hot, what do you think the next move will be on inflation, and where does this economy go from here?
Well, here you brought up two very telling cases before you brought me on. One about Rite Aid, which is not a real surprise. I had actually had bonds in Rite Aid that I sold earlier this year because it was very much a COVID play. Everybody thought that the drugstores would be in business for a long time. And then, of course, you brought up a buyout situation with Hostess. And then you throw in there what's certainly going on in Hollywood with the strike and the aftermath of the strikes and everything going on there. There's going to be volatility in all areas. And I think that the economy, when you talk about growth, remember, when we talk about the statistics coming from the government, they're an average. And in every average, there's good and there's bad and there's ugly. And you have to really sift through it and find those areas where things are going well. I mean, we'll probably talk about it during the interview, but certainly everybody's kind of bracing for impact when it comes to commercial real estate. Who are the big players that are going to be defaulting? Because a lot of those loans are moving up in interest rates. So you have to be very, very careful in this economy. But with that being said about inflation, the one thing that I bring up for everybody, we had a high that was established in early 2022. We had a low that was established late in 2022, and we're within that range. And although I know everybody's excited about what they saw in technology, tech is still not back at a new high. It is still making up for lost ground, and that's all the big names. So I think that with inflation, don't buy into uptrends and bull markets as much as you buy into uptrends and downtrends within a channel. And I think we're going to have that play out very similar to the way it played out in the 1970s for several years to come.
On the Air Live with Ken Winans, and look at NVIDIA, for example, which got up to, around 502 after that blowout earnings news this week, and now it's back down to around 458 from when I last checked here.
Yeah, NVIDIA is still not back at the high it was at early 2022, and it doesn't mean it's not a star performer. Hey, we're happy that a lot of these stocks recovered after those devastating losses, but it's just, Frank, it's best way to put it, it's inertia. You have a lot of movement sideways, but nothing really moves forward in a continuous uptrend. And so it brings up what I think a lot of people have to start looking at, which is if you think about the tortoise and the hare story, where you bet on the hare all the time, but sometimes the tortoise catches up. And in the way that I see the world, the tortoise to me are income investments. And after that drubbing that the bond market took last year, you can certainly find some investments that are paying very high yields, and you just sit back and collect the dividends or collect the interest payments, and you don't have to worry about the maturations and the price movement. And I think for a lot of people, they're beginning to say, if you're telling me I can get 7% a year per year for the next 3 to 5 years, That's sounding pretty darn good, and I'm hearing it especially from younger investors because they've been so used to what happened throughout this century with the highs and the lows that people are just willing to rethink how they invest money.
And certainly the cryptos have taken a hit recently with Bitcoin back down around 26,000 here and Ethereum at around 1,653, Doge at 6 cents. And at this point, Ken Winans, let me ask you the big question here. Where are you putting money now into or taking it off the table?
And I have a big list for you tonight, Frank. So let me start with those of you trying to figure out how do I capitalize on what's happened in Hollywood. Well, I have brought up before there is a preferred stock. And by the way, real quick, preferred shares are a type of stock that pay very, very high dividends, and they actually have protections of those dividends if the company ever cuts the common stock dividend. So my play in the preferred stock world for the Hollywood situation is Paramount Global. Believe it or not, Frank, it is paying, as of right now, a 14% dividend per year. So, again, I'm not trying to endorse you stick all your money there, but it's certainly something to realize that unless you think Paramount Global is going to go out of business, it's probably not a bad bet. The other Hollywood play, is Icon Enterprises. You know, Carl Icon's been a longtime player in Hollywood. They have a bond right now. It's coming due in 2026. It's yielding 9.3%. Again, these are two plays that, you can't say they're uber safe, but they certainly have moderate risk, and they're both big names. So those are my two Hollywood plays. If you're not quite in the appetite for that, how about a Ford Motor bond that's coming due in May of 2025, yielding 7%? So if you think the stock market will average 7% per year for the next several years, then don't pay attention to this. But again, it's Ford Motor Company, and everything is fine there. In the growth stock area, if you're looking for some names, that people typically don't talk about, I ran a lot of things through my meat grinder, and the name that came up, believe it or not, is Monster Beverage, symbol MNST. This stock is hitting all-time record highs. It posted some good earnings. It's a niche within the grocery store shelves. They've got their commodity costs under control. And so, again, it's these names of companies that you don't necessarily roll off the top of the tongue, but they are doing what they're doing. They're hitting new highs. And then I have a lot of people in your audience ask me about commodity plays. It's kind of funny. The number one best performing thing that I have been monitoring all year has been sugar. Sugar is up 46% in 2023. It is by far blown away the NASDAQ.
That's amazing, Ken. We're going to have to stop there, but that was a sweet idea here to end the week, and we do appreciate it. As always, thank you very much for that thorough assessment of this week's market action. Ken Winans, president of Winans Investments, Forbes magazine contributor, market historian, and author of Investment Atlas 1 and 2. Ken, it's always fantastic to have you with us. Thank you very much, and we wish you a great weekend. Mottek on Money continues here in 790 KBC. Good evening. The hot labor summer continues here in Hollywood, with Hollywood shut down because of the ongoing writers and actors union strikes. Hotel workers continuing to strike various hotels in the Los Angeles area, and maybe now a big strike by auto workers too, now that the United Auto Workers Union announced that its members have authorized a strike if the union can't reach new contracts with the Detroit three automakers, General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis, formerly known as Chrysler Fiat. Let's bring in the expert now. The one and only Lauren Fix is on the air with us here right now. Lauren Fix, editor-in-chief of Car Coach and the co-host of the Total Car Score podcast. Lauren, great to connect with you here on this big story. Your reaction here, the UAW voting to authorize a strike, 97% of the union members authorizing a possible strike. Give us your reaction to that big news here, first of all.
Well, this is a big problem. Even the president is concerned, and he should be, because the impact to the economy is terrible. If people aren't working and they're demanding all this money, then they're basically striking. And that's not good when they're practicing striking and their chance. I should tell people so they understand what the situation is, and I think it's really important for everyone. Currently, they're making between $60 and $70 an hour, and it depends on your position and so forth. The UAW is demanding $150 an hour per employee, plus that's $6,000 a week or $320,000 a year. Now, there was just a potential strike with UPS they came in at about $170,000 a year. Remember, we had a strike with pilots potentially as well, and everybody's making higher demands. So how this really waters down to you and I, the everyday person, is if they were to come to an agreement even at $100 an hour, which is a huge increase, somebody's going to pay that additional $30 or $40 per hour, and that's you. So when you go to buy a car, it's going to be more expensive because it's not just the auto workers assembling this, it costs the company in benefits as well. So it doesn't make you want to buy a car. And what it does is manufacturers are going to start moving their factories out of union states and moving them to non-union states or worse into other countries like Mexico and Canada. But typically it would be Mexico because Canada does work with UAW. They have their own version of it in Canada. And you're going to see people pulling out as the government's trying to push people to build batteries and electric vehicles here, whether we want them or not.
Excellent points there. So certainly this transition to electric vehicles causing a lot of concern among the unions. So we're going to watch that very, very closely. The UAW, of course, in particular. Now, another big story was just a week ago that we had the remnants of Hurricane Hillary hit this area, and there was concern here that the floods from Hillary could spark dozens of Tesla fires across California. I know you've experienced this in other parts of the country, but what do Tesla folks need to know about that possibility?
Well, I live part-time in Naples, Florida, so I understand what happens when a hurricane comes through and all that salt water gets dumped. If your vehicle is an electric vehicle and you had water damage, your car was maybe parked in the street or in a garage, something that flooded, don't drive that vehicle. That vehicle can be very dangerous. Water and electricity, no matter what it is, whether it's a car or anything, is obviously dangerous. It's pretty common sense. But we had problems in Florida, and the problems will occur of any flooded cars in California. I actually showed up there Monday. I was there the day after Hillary. It wasn't as bad as they thought, thank goodness. But still, there was a lot of damage. If your car is damaged, you're going to have to call your insurance company. Don't drive it. They do catch fire without any notice, which is exactly what happened in Florida. There was actually warnings going out on a regular basis saying, park your car outside and away from your home. So if that's what you should do.
And another thing that caught my attention this week, Texas electric vehicle owners will now pay extra fees when renewing registration. What's happening there?
Yes, starting September 1st, which is just around the corner, if you purchase a new electric vehicle in the state of Texas, you will be paying $400 at the time of your purchase, plus your registration fee of around $50. And then you'll pay $200 each year thereafter. And that is their charge for electric vehicles. It's Senate Bill 505 that passed. They're also talking about charging a by-the-mile fee, as is 17 other states. So be forewarned, if you purchase an electric vehicle, there's going to be increased rates, not just in California, but in other states. And it always starts with one, and then everybody jumps on board, and you're going to start seeing by the mile. You're going to see more toll roads. They're going to do everything they can to put money back into that road fund for roads and bridges. And if they're not getting it out of gas taxes, which they're certainly not going to put aside, then they're going to get it from us one way or the other.
And now PG&E proposing to use electric vehicles to send power back to grids to prevent blackouts, sucking the power out of EVs here in California potentially.
Oh, that is, in my opinion, that's a huge mistake. You need to push back against this. Right now, you can buy an electric vehicle, charge it at home. If your power goes out, there is what's called V2H, which is your vehicle to the home, and it can back charge to your home. And when power comes back on, it'll charge your vehicle. That keeps it inclusive within your vehicle and your home. That is a nice idea to have. But when they want to take it back to the grid, and this is a proposed bill, while you're sleeping, you lose power. The grid can take the power from your vehicle in order to support the grid.
That's unbelievable, Lauren. Thank you very much for that thorough update tonight on all things cars, and we look forward to speaking with you again very, very soon. That is Lauren Fix, our car expert here on 790 KBC, editor-in-chief of Car Coach and the co-host of the Total Car Score podcast on 790 KBC.